Most people who have spent any time abroad would probably tell you that it was one of the best experiences of their lives. And I would have to agree. In this video, I'm going to share with you some of the things I've learned about myself and about life from living in France during the past 5 years. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you have already subscribed to my channel, thank you. If you have not yet, please consider doing so and clicking that notification bell. What that does is that notifies you each time I upload a video about moving abroad, life in France, or finding the confidence and courage to live life on your terms. You'll be notified. I'm Patricia Brooks, and back in 2018, I left my project management job in Richmond, Virginia, and I set out on this adventure in France, in the south of France, where I figured out some things about myself and about life. And I'm going to share a few of those things with you. Now, the first thing that I learned about myself was that I love to laugh and I love to have fun. Now, I had this aha during my first couple of months here in France. I had signed up for a laughter yoga class, which I did not know what it was, but I knew it would be an opportunity to meet people and to laugh. And so I went to this session not knowing what to expect about 2 months into my stay here. And so the French language was still very new to me. This idea of laughter yoga was something that I'd never heard of before. And I went, and there were about 6 or 8 of us. And we were all told to make faces and act like children and laugh, just have fun laughing. And it was a really surreal experience for me because, first off, everything was in French. But second of all, to laugh for no reason at all just felt a little bit strange. But it was so much fun, and it lightened my load. It lifted the stress that I'd been experiencing having just moved to France. And so I went back again, and I finally decided I wanted to become a laughter yoga instructor. So I took the courses and I passed, and now I can do that. But had I not moved to France, had I not gone to that laughter yoga class, I might be still a little bit uptight. I might not let loose as easily as I can now. And so that's something that I've learned. I also learned that I love beauty. Now, when I was going through coach training, one of the values on our values assessment sheet was beauty. And I thought to myself back then, back in 2015, who would ever pick beauty as a value? But I have to raise my hand and say, I do, because now that I am here and exposed to the beautiful language on a daily basis, I'm exposed to the beautiful French landscapes on a daily basis, I love beauty. And this is something that I didn't know about myself before, or maybe I've grown into since being here, but it's really very important to me. So much so that now I am feeling a little bit resistant to the recycle bins and the trash bins that have cropped up throughout Centre-ville here. Before, they were buried underground, and so they had a low profile and they weren't really that ugly. But now there are these big bins all over that every time I see one, I have to catch myself and say, oh, Patricia, it's for greater good. It's more cost effective, what have you. But to see them right next to the 100 years old plane trees that line this idyllic village is not very pretty, not very beautiful. And so that is another reminder that, beauty is really important to you. Along those lines, the reason that I have to remind myself it's for the greater good is because I value ease and flow in life. And feeling resistant to things that feels hard. It doesn't feel easy. It doesn't feel like it flows. Now, this is a value that I've had for quite a while. I read a book from Stuart Wilde, or by Stuart Wilde, called Life Was Not Meant to Be a Struggle. And that is something that I have worked to aspire to and to experience. And it's strange that I am actually here in France and I say that I am looking for ease and flow, because some things here don't necessarily feel easy. I am my mother's daughter. She loved her conveniences, and so do I. So to be in a place where I don't have central heating and air, and in the winter times, I've got to open the windows in the dead of winter so that the condensation dries doesn't feel easy to me, or that I have to hang my laundry when I've never had to do doesn't feel easy. But yet I'm still here. And I think that goes to show you that no place is perfect. Being here overall fulfills my needs. And some of the inconveniences or some of the things that might not feel easy, I'm willing to deal with because of all of the other benefits. I left the United States because I wanted to feel free to be me. And I didn't really recognize how much I didn't feel that way until I was living in France. And that leads me to another thing that I've learned about myself is that I like being anonymous. My first 2 years here, I could walk around Perpignan, I could walk around my village and nobody knew me, and I could just be me, and I could wear what I wanted to wear. I could do what I wanted to do. Not that I was doing anything that was untoward, but it just felt freeing to be here. And so that is another core value of mine, freedom, and the freedom to be authentically me. And so that's something that I've been exploring and experiencing here in France, and it feels incredible. I also learned that I like to teach. Now, when I was a project manager, I ran projects, I led projects. There wasn't a whole lot of teaching involved. And I didn't care to be a teacher because, quite frankly, my mother had told me that I didn't want to. She was a Philadelphia school district teacher for 30 years, more than 30 years. And I remember as a child and a young adolescent, my mom saying, whatever you don't teach, I hate teaching, blah, blah, blah. So I went down the path of going to business school and going into corporate America. But now that I have started my own business and I coach, and part of my program is a curriculum, I realize that I love sharing information that will help other people have lives that are more in line with their values and that feel more easy and that flow. So that is something I learned about myself that I probably wouldn't have found out had I not been in this situation and starting my own business here. I also learned that while I love to teach, I also love to learn, and that I can learn. Learning French has been an incredible experience for me because I've figured out how to learn, and that's through repetition, and that it takes some time for things to stick. But when they stick, then I learn them, and I can use them and use them well. And I've learned that so much that I have started learning Spanish. And I've started learning Spanish because I've learned also about myself that I like connection. And one really good way to connect is to communicate, is to have deep conversations. And so now that I can have conversations in French that light me up, I walk away from these conversations and it just feels so good to me that I've been able to connect, number one, but number two, use the skills that I've learned in French to be understood. It's just amazing. And so now my neighbor to the south, Spain, I want to be able to communicate with the people there. And I've started that, and it's a really good feeling. I've also learned that I can be an avoider. I have this feeling sometimes that though I might like to do something, I'm afraid to look at what it might take to get there. And I've learned this about myself through the course of this whole experience. Even before I moved to France, I had avoided looking at what it would take to live in France financially for a year. And it wasn't until my coach challenged me to look into that I found out, and that I found out that I could actually make the move and do so for a couple of years. That delayed me in moving to France for about a year. In the scheme of things, not anything huge, but if I could have been living here a year sooner, that would have been amazing. I also learned that I avoided in starting my own business. My first 2 years here were great, and they were great not having to work, but I knew that I would have to start a business at some point. But I avoided looking into what that would take because I doubted my ability to do that. And the feeling is this dread in the pit of my stomach that, oh yeah, this might not work out for me. And so I avoided. But this avoidance is something I do in order to feel like things will be easier. But oftentimes when I avoid, it doesn't make it easier. It delays progress. And sometimes it can make things harder. So quite recently, I have decided that I am going to go for French citizenship sooner rather than later. I said a couple of years ago, I'll go for that when I have 8 years in, and I'm really, really, firmly rooted here in France. But after 5 years, I can actually submit the paperwork. Then one of the things that has pushed me to not avoid this is this TCF exam that I took in January and that I passed. I actually had to take the oral part twice. Everybody who took the exam when I took it had to, because there was a problem with the recording. And so it was stressful going into the test, the original test, and then it was even more stressful to have to go back and take the oral part. Now, this test is only good for 2 years. Unless I want to take this test again and have the stress of that all over again, I might want to submit my papers sooner than 8 years so that I can take advantage of using the test results that I have. And so I think that I probably will do that. And being aware that this avoidance is something I do has helped me to stop avoiding in some instances. All right. And I will say that I also have learned about myself that I like my personal space. I am not a market person because of that. On Saturday, there's a wonderful market, but if I go to the market, I go very early when there's not much of a crowd and I don't have to weave in and out of a lot of people. I go to the supermarket during the lunch break when everybody else is eating. I am going grocery shopping because one of the things that still drives me crazy is when somebody is right up against my back in line at the grocery store. And here, the personal space guidelines are much smaller. And in fact, when we had COVID and we had to have the meter in between people, that was a relief for me because it gave me the space that I really like to have. And it's not that I don't like people. I just feel like there's a certain boundary that I want to have in my personal space. And I'm not sure where that comes from, but it's something that I've learned about myself and that I have worked to minimize the resistance I have to it by taking deep breaths or telling myself that this is just normal. But it's been challenging for me. So those are some of the things I've learned about myself from living in France. Have you experienced learnings from spending time in foreign countries, whether it be traveling or actually living abroad? Let me know what you've learned about yourself and what core values you find are important to you because of that. Now, if you are looking to make a move abroad, I would love to learn more about that and understand why that is, what might be holding you back, and if working with me could help you get there sooner. I hope you've enjoyed this video and the beautiful landscape of the south of France. And if you have enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with friends, be sure to subscribe, and you might want to check out these videos here as well. That is all I have for you today. Bye for now.